Hi there. Welcome back. And today we are going to be talking about one thing that keeps gardens healthy throughout the season, and that's going to be soil. Just to open up, my name is Calvin Gardner. I work with the local Orange County Extension. I help people with gardening. And one topic that we consistently go over in my classes and with different community gardens is soil. Now, what is soil? Soil is a mixture of inorganic particles, things like rock dust and sand, mixed with broken down and decaying living organisms. So think of things like dead plants or old pieces of bark, or even old organisms like bacteria and fungi can all be found in soil. And so it's a mix of things found in the earth and things that were once living, and it becomes the perfect setting for growing a plant in your garden. And today we're going to talk about different ways that we prepare it for the season and the different things we add to it, especially in Florida with having such sandy soils. So come along as we talk about all these different important parts of this soil. Alrighty, so before we get into what to add to the soil, I just want to tackle a few common things that come up in my classes with community gardens. One of them being, how much soil do I need? Well, in order to find out how much soil you need, you just need to do a volume equation based on the size of your bed. Now, most beds are rectangular. If yours has more rounded edges, you can always just kind of guesstimate it from a rectangular perspective. But in this case, I have a bed that is 8 feet in length and 4 feet in width. And I wanted to have a depth of about 6 inches of soil. So I would just need to do the length, which is 8, times the width, which is 4, which would give us 32. And then I would multiply it by the depth that I want, which is half a foot or 0.5, which would give me 16. And that gives me 16 cubic feet I would need of soil to fill this bed to that height. Now, this bag of soil I have next to me is one that I found in the store. And you'll find many different types of soil throughout the store, whether gardening soil or landscape soil. Most of them work well for garden beds, but they will typically tell you how many cubic feet are within them. So this bag specifically has 2 cubic feet. So I would need 8 of these bags in order to fill this bed. Now just always pay attention to how many cubic feet, because some come in 1 cubic feet to 1.5 to 2 cubic feet. So just take a look and then figure out how many you'll need to fill your bed. Now, if you are filling a lot of different beds at the same time, this may not be your most cost-effective option, because each of these bags can cost up to $15 a bag. They run anywhere between 8 to 15 these days. And so you may want to look into reaching out to a local landscaping company, because they can give you soil in a cubic yard. Now, a cubic yard is 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet, which gives you approximately 27 cubic feet of soil. So you could almost fill 2 whole beds with one of those cubic yards of soil. They can deliver it to your property for a fee, and you typically get it at a much cheaper rate than you would if you were buying it from the bag store. So you have different options laid out before you, and you might want to plan accordingly based on how many beds you have or the bed space that you're going to need to grow your vegetables. All right, so the next thing we need to talk about is organic matter. Now, organic matter is the name of the game when it comes to growing in Florida, and really just any garden environment, but specifically Florida. The reason why is because Florida has very sandy soils. And sand does a few things really well. It does really well at drainage and having some level of porosity. But what it does poorly is it doesn't really hold on to water very well. And it doesn't really hold on to nutrients or fertilizer very well. And so in order to remedy this, we find that adding organic matter to our soil is the most effective thing. Now, what is organic matter? Organic matter is really anything that was once living and has now been broken down into a more of a soil-like form. So, like I said earlier, think of things like decaying plants or old bark, or even things like worm castings that were eaten by a worm and then kind of pushed back out in a new form that's bioavailable to plants. These are all organic matter. And what really constitutes it is that they have the molecule of carbon within them, and carbon does an excellent job at holding on to water and holding on to nutrients. So you can see why it's a perfect pair for adding to our sandy soils. And it's a great thing to add from season to season as you deplete your soils while you grow your vegetables. So right here, I have some compost in front of me. It's just a little bag of it that I got from the store. And so this is a common amendment, which is just something that we add to the soil that you can find within the store. And we're going to apply it in a few different ways. I'll show you maybe a few other types of organic matter that are common. But just remember that the key thing that you want to add to your soil is organic matter to keep it healthy and strong. All right, so when you go to apply compost, and again, we suggest applying it, year to year or season to season between plantings. There's a few different ways you can do it. Now, you'll see a lot of people, they'll just take a bag and they'll just go and spread it over the top of the soil, which can work. I mean, you're getting that compost into your bed. Now, what I like to do is I like to just get the whole bag out and give it a little bit of spread across whatever area I'm trying to grow in. And then we like to aim for anywhere between 1 to 4 inches of compost throughout the garden bed. So I'll go ahead and just take my shovel and start spreading out and really eyeballing it. See where I can get anywhere between 2 to 3 inches. Now, when we put this compost over the top of the soil, it's great. It's sitting on top of the soil. It'll work fine. But we also suggest tilling it in and giving it a little bit of a flip. So I'll come in here and I'll dig down a few inches and I'll just flip the soil over. And I'll go through the entire bed where I've put it in. And I will just flip the soil. What I'm doing is I'm intermixing it in with maybe some of that older, more depleted, drier soil and making a more homogeneous mix, which will help, especially because when you think about the way plants work, their root zone is going to go a lot deeper than just the first few inches of the soil. So if you keep adding that compost on top of the soil, the benefits may not be as good unless you get it more penetrated into that root zone area. So that is one way you can put compost into your soil. All right, so to recap what we've talked about, soil, especially in Florida, is very sandy. It's full of a lot of inorganic matter that drains off water quickly and doesn't hold fertilizer very well. And so we like to add things like organic matter, things that were once living and now broken down into a soil-like state that can be a holder for water and different kinds of fertilizer in the soil to increase the amount of water that resides there for plants to be healthier and also to increase the amount of nutrients available to them throughout the season. So it's vital to growing in Florida. Now, just a few last notes. We talked about adding compost to the soil, but there are a few other things that also help. This right here may look like compost, and in some forms it is, but it is also a composted cow manure, which you can find from the store pretty cheap. It has a little bit of extra nitrogen in it, and it does the same thing. It adds organic matter. What I'm standing on here is just some good old-fashioned mulch from just trees we had on the property. This is just teeming with carbon, and you can cover a lot of different open spaces of soil across your property. And what that will do is if you're not growing there, it will cover up the soil and create a bit of a barricade, and it will hold in moisture while the bottom layer begins to break down. What you end up with is a fairly rich soil underneath all of that mulch. So it's a really great way to be able to cultivate a soil even when you don't feel like spending the money on all the different amendments and composts and things you can add to your garden. To recap over all these videos we've done so far is that soil is the third most important thing because soil is so vital to growing healthy plants, but it doesn't substitute for planting at the right time or even having the plant in the right place. So once you have those two things, definitely look into what kind of soil you're growing in and how you can add to it and keep it healthy throughout the gardening seasons so you can maintain a really healthy garden. And if you have any further questions, you can feel free to reach out to your local extension office where they'd be happy to talk to you about different ways to tune up your soil.